Growing up, because I grew up in Connecticut, and what I find is Connecticut has no mountains, it has no ocean, no big tunnels, and so I love all the things that I didn't have when I was growing up.
Oh.
You know, so now like I grew up on Long Island Sound, which is this like very quiet body of salt water, so now I love the ocean as a result of that. And Connecticut has little hills, so I love mountains. And something about tunnels seemed really strange and exotic to me. I mean, I guess if you grow up in Switzerland, you're probably not that excited about tunnels. But I love the contained space that they have, and the fact that it's, in every sense, a completely different environment.
Tried to know when to leave.
So for this record, I guess there are 15 songs on the album. It was written over, let's say, a year and a half. So I probably wrote about 300 songs, and then narrowed it down to 100, then narrowed it down to 50, and then actually finishing the album made about 40 songs, and then figured out these 15 from those 40. So there's a whole lot of unreleased. I want to put out 3 albums or 4 albums at the same time, but then you realize most people don't want to listen to 3 albums or 4 albums at the same time. So, and then the other songs that don't get released, if they're good, hopefully at some point they will get released, and if not, they just sit on the shelf, and then maybe in 100 years, when I'm dead and gone, someone goes back to it and finds them, and then maybe someone listens to them. I don't know. Spend a lot of time in airplanes, and you look out the window and there are these amazing cloud formations, and it might seem like the worst subject matter for photography, you know, like taking pictures of clouds, but every now and then they're just really amazing, especially for some reason flying over the United States, because in the summertime we have these huge thunderstorms, and one of the most amazing things, I've never been able to take a picture of it, is you're flying past, you know, a huge thunderstorm, and you can actually look down at the lightning, and so it's like these thunderstorms are 30,000 feet tall, and to look down on the ground and actually see strikes of lightning happening 30,000 feet down, there's something very otherworldly about it. Like you almost feel like you're flying through Jupiter or. I like to do remixes. I honestly don't think I'm very good at it.
Why do you think that?
Well, I think that there are other people who just do it much better than I do. So I enjoy it. I don't know. I like doing the Plastic Man remix. He's a very old friend of mine, Richie Houghton. We first toured together 20 years ago. And Daft Punk, similar, like we've known each other for a long time. So it's more like doing remixes for friends than trying to do big commercial remixes or dance floor remixes. It's more just doing something that seemed, you know, like an interesting project for friends.
Why does my heart feel so bad? Why does my soul feel so bad?
Bands, I have the Vatican Commandos, which is a punk rock group, and then Little Death, which is more blues inspired, and then Diamond Snake, which is a heavy metal band. And honestly, I love being involved with these groups, but it's just fun.
It's just,
you know, because when I make my own records, it's me alone in my studio for days and days and days and weeks, and playing music with friends, it's just a nice change from being alone in the studio by myself. Diamond Snake, the heavy metal band, it's so completely different to the music I do, that it's just really fun. He was on the album artwork, he was in videos, he was on some of the t-shirts. And the new record, I don't know. I draw him everywhere. I just don't know if he's necessarily going to be as involved in the artwork or the t-shirts or the videos. When I sign autographs, it feels cheap if I just sign my name. So if I have the time, I like to draw pictures for people.
I know.
So that's really where he came.
Why does my heart
It's such a, I mean, I don't want to sound
too
flattering, but it's such a magical place. You remember the first time around Prague, maybe it was 92, and it was sort of, because now Prague is so filled with tourists. You know, it's like everything in Prague is covered with tourists, and I can't complain because I'm a tourist as well. But I remember that first time walking around and walking down the Alchemist Street and walking across the Philosopher's Bridge. Because I love that it's a city that had, you know, that had leaders and rulers who loved alchemy and philosophy. You know, and it's also funny because I grew up reading Kafka.
Yeah.
And you know, Kafka's book, The Castle. The castle in the Kafka book is very big and dark and scary. And the actual castle in Prague is a pretty nice place. So I expected this big black castle on a hill, and instead it's quite pretty. The thing about touring is you tend to go to big cities in the Western world, so I've never really been outside of the Western world. So I would love to go to Mongolia, to Tibet, to Bhutan, to the South Pacific, Africa.
An exclusive.
Because I have such a strange musical background that now I get to do all these different things. You know, I get to either play live, do acoustic shows, DJ, play in punk rock bands, play in heavy metal bands, and it's nice having the opportunity to do all of it. You know, I think if I only did one thing, it might get kind of boring after a while.
people that fall apart?
At night in hotel rooms, because I tend to have insomnia. And so I would write music late at night, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning when everybody else in the city is asleep.
The ideas that come in.
Yes, I would be up and I'd be writing music, and that would be very much inspired by that experience of being alone in a hotel room at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I would take the music back to New York, into my studio, and that's where I sort of tried to finish the songs. But I tried to mainly use old equipment, like old synthesizers, old drum machines, old guitar amps, just to give it a more sort of humble, broken quality. So I really like I like the results you get with weird old equipment. Like new equipment is great, but new equipment's too perfect.
Yeah.
People that fall apart.
Listen to an old Billie Holiday record, or an old Rolling Stones record. You can hear the studio. You know, some of the best moments in like old Beatles records is when you can hear someone talking in the background. You can and you feel like you're there with them in the studio. And so I try to almost force myself to let the mistakes stay in the record. And I think that the record companies treated artists badly and treated listeners badly. And so there wasn't the sense of loyalty on the part of musicians to record companies or on the part of listeners to musicians. And also there's so many things to pay attention to now. You know, there are movies and TV shows and video games and books and apps and all these things, whereas before music occupied a lot more people's time and space and attention. But I think to me that the answer, if you want to save the record business, make better music. You know, people talk about all these different revenue streams and media platforms. It's like, if you want to sell more records, make better records. You know, make records that are beautiful and emotional and interesting and will connect with people. And I think that there are still people willing to go out and listen to them. I really like the last album, Wait For Me, quite a lot.
It was a little bit sad for me.
Yeah, well, and I like the aesthetic that it has. I like that it's sonically quite a bit more experimental. I really like the album, the Animal Rights album.
I thought you will tell that.
Because there's an intensity to it that I really appreciate. It's funny, the music that I've made that's been more popular is my least favorite. You know, like
Coming through extreme worlds alone. Did you ever like it then? I would stand.
Good at thinking about commercial success. You know, whenever I've had any commercial success, it's been a complete accident. And if I tried to plan it, like I think there's some producers and musicians who are very good at listening to the radio and figuring out what should get played on the radio. And I just like the idea of making music for someone who's willing to listen to it in their bedroom or in their car late at night. So it's much more a form of direct communication between me and the person who's willing to listen to it.
Oh, baby, then it fell apart. It fell apart.
I shouldn't be thinking, can I sell millions of copies? It's, can I make something that someone can relate to emotionally, that someone can find a place for in their lives? Instead of trying to think, how do you sell as many copies as possible, how do you make something that one smart, interesting person might like?
I close my eyes and close myself and close my world and never open up to anything.
One thing is that musicians need listeners more than listeners need musicians. You know, like listeners have a choice of billions of pieces of music to listen to. You know, if you're a listener, you literally have about 5 billion songs to choose from. So as a musician, anytime anyone makes the effort to listen to something I've done, it's so flattering to me and humbling, and it's an honor if someone is willing to listen to the music that I've made. So that's my message.
It fell apart. It fell apart. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Then it fell apart. It fell apart. Oh, baby.
An exclusive.
up. I stopped by Ben this weekend to make his club safer. Roman Zago, the owner of Mid-Black.
I think it should be maybe mandatory.
Man, thank you so much for throwing me this amazing party.
An exclusive.